Pakistan, land of titanic mountains, land of endless deserts, land of colors and ancient traditions. A colorful truck crosses remote valleys. An ancient river feeds boundless plains. A snow-covered peak rises toward the sky. Welcome to Pakistan. Welcome, where the world reaches its highest peaks. Known as the land of the pure, this is a place where gigantic mountains challenge the sky, where cold and hot deserts coexist, and where the guest is as sacred as the life itself. But let's start from the beginning. Pakistan stretches from the Himalayas to the Arabian Sea, holding within itself geographic contrasts that challenge the imagination. From its lowest point, which is just a few meters above sea level along the Makran coast, to the summit of K2, this country covers an elevation range of over 8,500 meters, or 27,887 feet, one of the largest in the world. It is a land of extremes, where three deserts coexist with three different climates. There are the cold deserts of Katpana and Sarfaranga, where sand mixes with ice, or the hot deserts of Thar and Cholistan, where the sun burns relentlessly. Or still there are the subtropical coastal zones on the Arabian Sea, where the ocean tempers the air. But it is toward the sky that Pakistan reveals its true greatness. Five of the 14 so-called 8,000ers of the planet rise here, meaning the mountains that exceed 8,000 meters, or 26,247 feet in altitude. Among these, K2 dominates at 8,611 meters, or 28,251 feet, being the second highest peak in the world and the most dangerous to climb, having severely tested the greatest mountaineers in history. In the Karakoram, moreover, extend the vastest glaciers in the world, outside the polar regions. Some, like the Baltoro, remain surprisingly stable or even advancing, a phenomenon known as the Karakoram anomaly, which defies the predictions of global planetary warming. And it is in this majestic landscape that the Indus flows, a millennial river that originates on the Tibetan border and crosses the country for over 3,000 kilometers, or 1,864 miles, irrigating valleys, plains, and deserts. Since ancient times, it has been the backbone of the Indus Valley civilization, one of the oldest in the world, and it is still today the lifeblood of the nation. Connecting the geographic extremes of this nation has been a titanic undertaking, yet Pakistan has accomplished it. For example, there is the Karakoram Highway, built between Pakistan and China, also called the eighth wonder of the world, and it is the highest paved road in the world, reaching 4,693 meters, or 15,397 feet. But it is precisely along these remote roads that vehicles become colorful canvases, where flowers, poetic verses, religious symbols, and geometric motifs completely cover trucks and buses, transforming traffic into a traveling art exhibition that celebrates life in motion. The geographic diversity of the nation is also reflected in the cultural richness of the country. In fact, over 70 languages are spoken here. Urdu is the national language, but the most widespread are Punjabi, Sindhi, Pashto, and Balochi. Each region has its own traditions, music, and cuisines that reflect centuries of exchanges and mixtures, creating a cultural mosaic of rare complexity. It should be remembered that the history of this land has roots in very ancient times. Before Islam, Pakistan was a Buddhist center of primary importance, with Taxila, which was one of the first universities in the world, and the Gandhara region produced Buddhist art that still today influences Asian aesthetics. But perhaps more than any other characteristic, it is hospitality that defines the Pakistani soul. Guests here are sacred and must be protected at all costs, reflecting a deep cultural value rooted throughout the country, a true code of honor that crosses ethnicities, languages, and religions. Pakistan, therefore, is much more than a simple nation. It is an entire world, a place that continues to tell its millennial story to anyone who visits it. But now let's go discover the most incredible and iconic places of this nation. Lahore. Here, dust mixes with the scent of cardamom, and history speaks through the stones. Lahore preserves centuries of civilization in the Indus Valley, with every alley telling of dynasties that have shaped southern Asia. The Badshahi Imperial Mosque dominates the city, with its red domes and courtyard that welcomes 100,000 faithful, built in 1671 when the Mughal Empire touched its apex. Not far away, the Wazir Khan Mosque transforms light into colors through majolica tiles that cover every surface. Next to the Badshahi Mosque, there is the Lahore Fort, which contains palaces decorated with thousands of mirrors and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Furthermore, a few kilometers from the city, Hiran Minar rises like an octagonal lighthouse surrounded by water, erected to commemorate a deer that Emperor Jahangir loved. In this city, you can walk where the Mughals transformed power into beauty, and where 8 million people today live among decorated carts and mausoleums. Indus River. The Indus flows for 3,000 kilometers, or 1,864 miles, from the Himalayas to the Indian Ocean, crossing valleys where water decides who prospers and who doesn't. This river gave its name to India and nourished one of the first urban civilizations in the world, which here built sewage systems, while elsewhere people lived in huts. Today, the Indus irrigates 24 million hectares, or 59.3 million acres, and sustains 180 million people who depend on its waters to cultivate cotton, wheat, and rice. The river changes color with the seasons, carrying sediments that fertilize the plains, but that also fill the dams built to control its force. Along its banks, freshwater dolphins coexist with fishermen who still cast their nets, and with cities that rise where water makes life possible in the desert. Karachi. This city extends on the Arabian Sea with 18 million inhabitants who speak different languages but share the same saline horizon. Karachi was born as a fishing village and grew under the British, who made it a strategic port, transforming it into the first capital of Pakistan after 1947. The Mausoleum of Quaid protects the remains of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, founder of the nation, under a dome that gleams with white marble. The Mohata Palace rises like a piece of Rajasthan transplanted onto the sea, built in 1927 with pink stone from Jodhpur. The Tuba Mosque is distinguished by the largest single dome in the world, with 60 meters or 197 feet in diameter without internal pillars, with acoustics that are nothing short of sensational. Here you can breathe the energy of a metropolis where containers, skyscrapers, and hand-painted carts create an urban mosaic that never sleeps. While along the coast, families stroll at sunset and vendors offer roasted corn on the sand. Karakoram Highway. This road climbs up to 4,500 meters, or 14,764 feet, through 3 mountain ranges connecting Pakistan and China, along a route where once caravans loaded with silk passed. The construction lasted 20 years and claimed the lives of 810 workers, buried by avalanches or fallen into precipices, while cutting rock with dynamite and pickaxes. The highway follows ancient trade routes that united Kashgar to Islamabad, passing through gorges where rivers flow thousands of meters or thousands of feet below. Along the route, one encounters Hunza villages where people live beyond 90 years, and cultivate apricots on terraces carved into the mountain. The road crosses seismic zones where landslides erase sections of asphalt every year, but it remains the only land route between the two Asian giants. Nanga Parbat. It is the 9th highest mountain in the world, and its rocky walls rise vertically for 4,000 meters, or about 13,125 feet, creating the highest wall on the planet. Moreover, an enormous glacier 15 kilometers, or about 9 miles long, descends from its flanks. Climbers have found 8 different routes to reach the summit, but this mountain has one of the most tragic histories in mountaineering. The mountain is so large that it creates its own weather system, with storms that can last for weeks. The nearby villages finally live to the rhythm of the mountain seasons, with the light of dawn taking about an hour to descend from the summit down to the valley. Hunza Valley. In northern Pakistan survives an ancient valley, surrounded by the highest mountains on the planet. The fields are built in terraces on the slopes and supported by ancient walls, while a system of canals distributes glacier water to all cultivated lands. Here we also find ancient stone fortresses, which recall the time when local kings controlled the trade routes between China and India. The main river, moreover, has created very deep gorges, and suspension bridges connect the villages on both sides of the valley. Among these, the Hussaini Bridge is considered one of the most dangerous bridges in the world. It is a shaky footbridge of wooden planks and ropes suspended tens of meters above the tumultuous waters of the Hunza River. In 2010, a landslide blocked the same river further downstream, creating Lake Atabad, which now extends for 21 kilometers or 13 miles, with waters that have submerged villages and roads, transforming a catastrophe into a landscape where boats have replaced automobiles. The Baltit Fort dominates the valley for 700 years, built with poplar wood and stone, when the Huns Akut traded along the Silk Road. Islamabad. The capital of Pakistan was born from nothing in 1960, designed on a geometric grid at the foot of the Margala Hills. Urban planners traced numbered sectors where before goats grazed, creating a garden city with wide avenues and parks that cover a third of the urban surface. The Faisal Mosque rises like a white tent of cement and marble, designed by a Turkish architect who imagined the mountains as natural walls of the prayer hall. Instead of traditional domes, 4 minarets, as tall as 30-story buildings, mark the corners of a building that welcomes 300,000 faithful. Here you can see a capital that is only 60 years old, but already hosts 2 million people. Swat Valley. This green valley in northwest Pakistan extends along the river of the same name, where Alexander the Great fought tribes that would not bow to any empire. For centuries, Buddhists built monasteries on the hills and carved Buddha into living rock. Swat was governed by local princes until 1969, when it became part of modern Pakistan. Orchards of peaches and apples cover the slopes of the mountains, and the river provides trout to the restaurants of Mingora, the main city. In 2007, the Taliban took control of the valley, banning music in girls' schools until the army reconquered the territory in 2009. Fairy meadows. At the foot of Nanga Parbat mountain, we find an alpine meadow reachable only through one of the most dangerous roads in Pakistan. This green place is located at the base of what mountaineers call the Killer Mountain due to its dangerousness. The glaciers arrive right to the edge of the meadow, where in the summer shepherds of the Gujjar tribe bring their sheep. Here, the only sound that breaks the silence is that of avalanches falling from the walls, and of glacier water forming small streams crossing the meadows. Sarfaranga Cold Desert. At 4,000 meters, or 13,123 feet in altitude, this desert of sand and ice extends in the Karakoram, where temperatures drop below zero even in summer. Golden dunes rise between glaciers and snowy peaks, created by wind that carries sediments from glacial rivers. During winter, snow covers the sand, and the landscape becomes a white sea, where only the Bakarwal nomads dare to cross with their goats. In spring instead, the melting of ice reveals dunes that can reach 100 meters or 328 feet in height, while the contrast between sand hot by day and freezing air creates dust storms visible from kilometers or miles away. Here life is reduced to lichens and low shrubs that survive even where oxygen is scarce. Skardu. This city is the starting point for those climbing K2 and is located where the Indus River widens its course, creating a fertile valley surrounded by mountains. Cultivated fields extend along the banks, where apricots, apples, and wheat grow, thanks to irrigation canals that bring water from glaciers. Poplars border the agricultural lands with orderly rows, while alpine meadows turn brilliant green during summer. The rarefied air, at 2,500 meters, or 8,202 feet in altitude, slows growth. But the combination of intense sun and glacial water produces fruits with concentrated flavor. The Skardu Fort clings to a vertical rock, 400 meters, or 1,312 feet, above the valley, built in the 16th century when local rulers controlled trade routes. From up here you can see where the Shigar River meets the Indus and how the green of the fields contrasts with the Rocky Mountains. Peshawar. This city has existed for 2,000 years, on the border between the Indian subcontinent and Central Asia, with every invader having left traces in the bazaars and in the mosques. Before it was an important Buddhist center, when merchants traveled between Rome and China. Then came the Mughals, the Sikhs, and finally the British. The Balahisar Fort dominates the city from a hill, used as a military outpost for centuries, and still today, a base of the Pakistani army. The Mahabat Khan Mosque, dating back to 1630, showcases Mughal architecture with its spacious courtyard, adorned with glazed tiles and a central ablution pool. The University of Peshawar, founded in 1950, extends over a campus where thousands of young people study, among colonial buildings and new constructions. Finally, the old city preserves traditional houses with carved wooden balconies where Pashtun families live following their traditions. Rakaposhi. It is like a gigantic ice pyramid which dominates the Hunza Valley. Its glaciers descend down to 3,000 meters, or about 9,850 feet, where farmers cultivate among the boulders while ibexes climb on the walls. The mountain itself blocks the cold northern winds, creating a milder microclimate that allows the cultivation of apricots and other fruits up to surprisingly high altitudes. In summer, finally, the shepherds of the Wakhi tribe bring the flocks to high altitude. Gwadar. At dawn, fishermen push boats into the sea, following a rhythm handed down through generations. Nets are cast into the waters of the Arabian Sea and come out rich with tuna and sardines that sustain the families of the village. Children run on the beach, helping to arrange the nets or watching the men repair the wooden boats. This is Gwadar, a place where life maintains a simple authenticity tied to the cycles of the sea and the tides. Today, cranes and construction sites mark the transformation of the city into a strategic commercial port, but the sea remains the constant element of the place, with temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit for months. K2. The second highest mountain in the world, with a height of about 8,611 meters, or about 28,251 feet, is considered the most dangerous to climb. Only 300 mountaineers have reached the summit, while 87 have lost their lives in the attempt. An enormous glacier, 60 kilometers or about 37 miles long, descends from the mountain, continuously molding the landscape. Here, storms can block climbers for weeks in extreme conditions, while base camp, built on the moving glacier, must be continuously relocated. Deosai National Park. At 4,000 meters, or 13,123 feet in altitude, this expanse extends for 3,000 square kilometers, or 1,158 square miles, among mountains that touch the sky. During winter, frost dominates unchallenged, while in summer, the ground is covered with wildflowers that attract the Himalayan brown bear. About 200 specimens of this species live here, together with red foxes and marmots that have learned to survive where oxygen is scarce. The name means land of shadows and perfectly describes how clouds draw changing patterns on the prairie. Streams cross the plain fed by glaciers, nourishing this plateau that represents one of the still intact high-altitude ecosystems on the planet, where nature has dictated the rules for millennia. Ranikot Fort. "32 kilometers, or 19.9 miles of walls, rise among arid hills, following the natural profile of the territory. The fortifications enclose an area of about 26 square kilometers, or 10 square miles, making it one of the most extensive defensive structures ever built. Inside, there are 4 main gates and the remains of military garrisons that controlled the trade routes of the region. The Thar River flows alongside, providing the water necessary to the settlements. No one knows with certainty who ordered the construction, nor which empire wanted to protect, but there is the wind here that sweeps away every answer. Kapana Cold Desert. At 2,200 meters, or 7,218 feet in altitude, extends a desert, surrounded by gray-blackish mountains. Sand dunes shine when the sun illuminates them, creating a contrast with the rocky slopes behind. During winter, snow often covers the dunes, transforming the landscape into a white expanse. This environment is born from the encounter between cold and dry air currents that deposit sediments carried by winds along the banks of the Indus River. Vegetation, however, grows surprisingly among the dunes, with trees and plants adapted to extreme conditions. Travelers who cross this silent landscape sink every step into the fine sand, with temperatures dropping rapidly after sunset, reminding why this place is called Cold Desert. Passu Cones. These rock spires rise vertically for over 6,000 meters, or 19,685 feet, forming a chain of sharp peaks that dominates the Hunza Valley. The Passu Glacier flows at their feet, carrying debris that tells millennia of erosion. The Karakoram Highway crosses the valley, carrying trucks and rickshaws, which are traditional three-wheelers that transport goods and travelers among remote villages. There is also the Passu Suspension Bridge that sways above the glacial river, connecting the two banks with cables and wooden planks, and crossing it requires immense courage. Avalanches regularly descend during winter, continuously redrawing the landscape, with tons of snow and ice. Derawar Fort. "40 cylindrical bastions emerge from the Cholistan desert, visible for kilometers in the distance. The construction dates back to the 18th century and has walls that reach 30 meters, or 98.4 feet in height, and enclose a perimeter of over 1 kilometer, or 0.62 miles. Next to the fort rises the Abbasi Mosque, built in 1849 in white marble, with 3 large domes that stand out strongly compared to the surrounding sand. Inside the fort, there are courtyards, cisterns for rainwater, and a smaller mosque. Today, the structure still belongs to the royal family of Bahawalpur, who meticulously preserve its original architecture. Naltar Valley. This valley holds lakes fed by glaciers that shine with intense blue. Himalayan pine forests cover the slopes, offering refuge to snow leopards and ibexes. During winter, the snow exceeds 2 meters, or 6.6 feet, transforming the valley into a white expanse, crossed only by ski slopes. In spring instead, the meadows are covered with wildflowers, while streams carry freezing water toward the valley floor. Visitors come here to walk along trails that cross suspension bridges and forests, where the air smells of resin. Hingol National Park. It is the most extensive national park in Pakistan, with 600,000 hectares, or 1.48 million acres, that connect the coast of the Arabian Sea to the mountains of Balochistan. The Hingol River crosses canyons carved in sandstone, creating rock formations shaped by wind, including the Princess of Hope, which is a column that resembles the figure of a woman. The park hosts 6 distinct ecosystems, from subtropical forests to coastal desert zones. Here live Persian leopards, Sind ibexes, and marine turtles that come ashore to lay their eggs on the beaches. Temperatures exceed 45 degrees Celsius, or 113 degrees Fahrenheit, in summer, and it represents one of the most varied natural landscapes in the country. Khunjerab Pass. It is the highest paved border crossing in the world, and it is the passage point between Pakistan and China through the Karakoram Range. The modern road follows the ancient Silk Road trade route, with clouds that are often found below the level of the pass, and trucks that instead struggle to climb due to lack of oxygen. For 6 months of the year, the pass is closed due to snow, while border guards live in isolated outposts lashed by the wind. Tomb of Shah Rukn-e-Alam. In the city of Multan, This octagonal structure rises for 58 meters, or 190 feet, dominating the urban skyline for 7 centuries. Shah Rukn-e-Alam was a Muslim mystic belonging to the Sufi spiritual movement whose profound faith and wisdom attracted devotees from across the subcontinent. The brick walls are decorated with blue and white majolica tiles that form hypnotic geometric patterns, while the internal dome amplifies sounds, transforming prayers into echoes. The construction techniques have resisted earthquakes and centuries of weathering, demonstrating the mastery of the craftsmen who built it without modern machinery. Shigar Valley. The Shigar River descends from the peaks of the Karakoram, carrying glacial silt that deposits fertile layers among the rocky walls. The turbid waters laden with sediments shape the valley floor, creating green oases in the arid landscape. Glaciers hang from the surrounding peaks, feeding the watercourse that varies its flow according to the seasons. Vegetation concentrates where water arrives, with poplars and willows that follow the canals, while fruit trees occupy every irrigated strip. Beyond this strip, the valley returns to rocky desert, and the rarefied air amplifies the silence of the mountain. Kachura Lake. Two separate bodies of water are located in this valley at 2,600 meters or 8,530 feet in altitude. The upper lake reflects the snowy peaks, while the lower one hosts a resort built with logs and local stone. The waters take on shades that vary from green to intense blue according to light and season. The inhabitants fish and grow vegetables on the banks, exploiting natural irrigation, while poplars grow in orderly rows along the canals. During winter, ice covers the surface, creating a transparent sheet where the rocks of the bottom can be glimpsed. Shandur Pass. A high-altitude meadow where since 1936 a polo match has been played every summer, which is an equestrian sport of Persian origin. The teams from the valleys of Chitral and Gilgit compete on a natural field, surrounded by mountains, with thousands of people who camp on the slopes, creating a temporary city of colorful tents. The pass connects isolated regions, allowing the passage of shepherds and merchants during the warm months. Winter closes the pass under meters of snow, leaving the plain deserted until the following spring, when the cycle begins again. Central Karakoram National Park. (10,000 square kilometers, or 3,861 square miles of park, enclose 5 peaks that exceed 8,000 meters, or 26,247 feet, including K2. Glaciers occupy much of the territory, moving slowly and carrying rocks as large as houses. Here live snow leopards, ibexes, and golden eagles that have developed adaptations to survive at extreme altitudes. Vegetation is sparse and tenacious, with mosses and lichens clinging to rocks, while in lower valleys appear twisted junipers and poplars, where the soil permits deeper roots. The Balti communities inhabit the valleys at the edges of the park, living on subsistence agriculture and pastoralism. Ghizer Valley. Three districts extend along this valley, where the river of the same name flows for 150 kilometers, or 93.2 miles among the mountains of the Hindu Kush. Villages rise on terraces cultivated with wheat and potatoes, while poplars delimit the fields, following ancient geometries. Lake Fandar reflects the surrounding peaks, while further upstream, Lake Khalti freezes completely in winter, transforming into a solid surface where locals walk and play. Here, Dardic languages are still spoken, and life here requires planning and resilience, qualities that the inhabitants have refined through centuries of adaptation. Hopar Valley. The Hopar Glacier extends for 57 kilometers, or 35.4 miles among the rock walls of the Karakoram, fed by snowfalls that fall on the surrounding peaks. Further downstream, where ice gives way to earth, the inhabitants of the village of Hopar cultivate vegetables on narrow terraces carved from the slopes, irrigating with canals that divert glacial water. The terraces form green steps on the rocky walls that contrast with the gray of the stone. Each level is supported by dry stone walls, built and repaired by generations. The valley lives in a precarious balance between the force of ice and human resilience. Khalti Lake. This lake lies in a natural basin surrounded by mountain pastures, where herders bring their yaks during the summer months. Snow covers the area from October to May, transforming the lake into a frozen surface, where only wild animals and the most courageous skaters manage to leave traces. In fact, no road reaches this point, One must walk for hours along trails that cross forests of birches and firs. The freezing waters always remain transparent, allowing one to see down to the rocky bottom. Leepa Valley. This valley extends along the Leepa River on the border between Pakistan and Indian-administered Kashmir. Forests of pines and oaks cover the mountain slopes, releasing humidity that keeps the climate mild even in summer. Houses painted with vivid colors dot the cultivated slopes and terraces where corn and beans grow. There are also dirt roads between villages, often interrupted by landslides during the monsoon period. The border position has marked local history with divisions that have separated families for decades, yet life continues, following unchanged agricultural rhythms. Taxila. Here, Alexander the Great stopped in 326 BC, and Buddhism flourished before vanishing under new faiths. Taxila gathers the remains of 3 cities built in 1,000 years, when this commercial crossroads united Persia to China and attracted scholars from across the ancient world. Excavations reveal Buddhist monasteries, with stupas that guarded relics, universities where medicine and astronomy were taught, and patrician houses with courtyards. The sculptures show Buddha with Greek features, testimony of when different cultures merged instead of fighting. UNESCO protects these remains that tell how ideas traveled together with goods, transforming the valley into a laboratory of civilization. Concluding this visual journey through Pakistan, we have moved from the charm of its ancient valleys to the cities and most extraordinary landscapes, exploring together not only places, but also curiosities that make every corner of this land unique. We hope that the images and stories told have enriched your knowledge and stimulated the desire to personally explore the extraordinary richness of this fascinating country.